Hello and welcome to Football Daily, where today we're counting down 10 of the strangest mysteries in football. 10. Man United's Men in Black. In 2013, David Moyes was in the middle of a calamitous first summer at Man United. The Scot, keen to reinforce his midfield, had failed with an ambitious move for Cesc Fabregas and turned his attentions to Athletic Bilbao's Ander Herrera. On deadline day, the press reported that United had 3 lawyers at San Mamés negotiating for Herrera's signature, but a deal failed to materialise. United claimed that the lawyers were imposters in Spain without the club's knowledge, and instead brought in demonic toilet brush Marouane Fellaini. It turned out that United had made a low offer for Herrera, despite Bilbao demanding the buyout clause be met, and hired the lawyers to get the transfer over the line. After it all went to shit, they lied to cover their arses, making the real mystery how Moyes lasted 10 months at Old Trafford. 9. Thomas Rosicky blows it. A wonderfully gifted footballer, Thomas Rosicky is one of Arsenal's many what-if stories. The Czech spent 10 years with the Gunners after joining from Borussia Dortmund in 2006, but was sidelined through injury for 990 days, nearly 3 whole years. But there were rumours that Rosicky suffered from a slightly different problem. Almost every Arsenal fan has a friend of a friend who claims that the little Mozart actually had a monster cocaine addiction and spent his time out not on the physio's table, but in rehab for his blow habit. And with Rosicky's hair and metalhead musical tastes, it does seem at least a tiny bit plausible. Plus, it would explain how he still had that burst of pace and energy at the ripe old age of 36. And after a career undeserving of his talent, maybe Super Tom has earned a night on the rails. 8. Cristiano Ronaldo, Spanish superstar. Portugal's most capped player and all-time top scorer, Cristiano Ronaldo ranks alongside Luis Figo and Eusebio as one of the nation's brightest stars, and captained them to a first international trophy at Euro 2016. But in 2011, it seemed that Ronaldo might make the most controversial transfer in football history. Reports suggested that CR7 was on the verge of switching his international allegiance to Spain, with La Roja sending £160 million in the other direction to help resolve Portugal's enormous national debt. Of course, FIFA regulations would have caused problems for such a move, but that didn't stop newspapers and websites running with the story, until they realised that the original source was The Independent, who had published the claims on April 1st. Whoops. 7. Who stole the World Cup trophy? 1966 is famous for England's World Cup win, but there was almost no trophy for Bobby Moore to lift at Wembley. The Jules Rimet trophy was put on display in London in January of 1966, where it was meant to stay until the summer's tournament. But in March, despite stringent security measures, the trophy was stolen by persons unknown. The next day, the head of the FA received a ransom note instructing him to place a coded message in the personal section of the Evening News, and to ready a ransom payment of £15,000. The police managed to catch the ransomer, Edward Betchley, when he came to collect the money, but Betchley claimed he was working on behalf of someone called The Pole, and that he didn't have the cup. A few days later, a dog called Pickles found the trophy, wrapped in newspaper and hidden in a hedge. The identity of The Pole and how the cup ended up in the hedge in the first place have never been discovered. 6. Football's greatest conman. Know the name Alessandro Zarelli? Well, in 2004, he was Italy's best young prospect, at least according to him. A low-quality midfielder, Zarelli wrote to clubs across the UK, pretending to be an executive with the Italian Football Federation and offering the services of a promising youngster who had trained at Rangers. Using this method, Zarelli was able to play for 22 different clubs, though he never made it to the big time. He requested weekly wages of £200 and would stay in local hotels, before disappearing without paying his bills when his lies were uncovered. Eventually, the producers of a TV programme tracked Zarelli down and invited him to a meeting pretending to be scouts. After the Italian went through his usual routine, talking about spells at Rangers and Sheffield Wednesday, the producers revealed that they had hoaxed the hoaxer. Zarelli is apparently still playing, aged 32, having featured for 6 different teams in 2016 alone. It might be time to give up on the dream, Alessandro. 5. Taribo West, ageless vampire. Age fraud has a long and depressing history in Nigeria, with one former head of the country's football federation admitting that the Super Eagles had used overage players to win youth competitions. And defender Taribo West, who earned 42 caps for Nigeria, has been regularly accused of doctoring his age. The centre-back played for both Milan clubs and won Olympic gold with his country, but a former executive at Partizan Belgrade said that when they signed West in 2002, he turned out not to be 28, as he claimed, but 40. A proposed move to Croatian side Rijeka reportedly failed for the same reason, and despite West's denials, doubts remain. But he's not the only one. Nwankwo Kanu won the Champions League with Ajax in 1995, but maintains that he is still just 40 years old. Harry Redknapp, Kanu's boss at Portsmouth, guessed that the big man was 49 way back in 2010. Chances are we'll never know the truth. 4. Cristiano Ronaldo's test tube baby. Cristiano Ronaldo has obsessively crafted himself into one of the world's greatest athletes over more than a decade in the game. But he seems to have put the same effort into engineering a son as outstanding as he is. Cristiano Jr. was born in 2010 in the USA, ensuring that the child will have American citizenship. But the identity of the boy's mother has remained shrouded in secrecy, with English students, American waitresses, and a raft of supermodels all mooted as possibilities, and rumours of £10 million paid in hush money. Ronaldo admits that his son doesn't know who his mother is, and documentary footage shows that CR7 is already trying to turn the boy into a superior physical specimen, making the 6-year-old perform press-ups and sit-ups, and of course, dressing him just like daddy. Our money's on the kid being a clone. 3. Spurs cough up 4th. Tottenham looked like they had finally beaten Arsenal to 4th spot in 2006. Going into the final day of the league campaign, Spurs needed to match the Gunners' result to take the last Champions League spot and condemn their rivals to Thursday nights in the UEFA Cup. But the night before the last game, almost the entire Spurs squad got food poisoning from their hotel restaurant, with the lasagna the chief suspect. They tumbled to defeat against West Ham the next day, while Arsenal won 4-2, and North London was red again. Desperate to overturn the result, the club called in the police to investigate the incident, suspecting that their food had been spiked by Gooner saboteurs. But despite providing the lucky coppers with blood and urine samples, Spurs' complaints failed to sway the FA. Tests failed to reveal any evidence of tampering, though we hear Arsene Wenger makes a mean pasta dish. 2. Mystery in Moldova. In January 2009, Arsenal were 3rd in the Premier League, and fans were looking for a transfer boost which could drive them onto the title. Step forward The Times, who published a list of football's top 50 rising stars, naming Masal Bagdov at number 30, a 16-year-old Moldovan who was reportedly on the brink of joining the Gunners. Goal.com picked up the story, and before long the Bagdov hype train was up to top speed, with the youngster on his way to London with a bunch of international caps in one hand and the Champions League trophy in the other. Unfortunately, it turned out that Bagdov was not Arsenal's saviour, but totally made up, a bullshit phantom cooked up on internet forums. Bagdov's name was actually a play on the Irish for little black donkey, also the name of a short story in which a thick villager buys a crocked donkey for an inflated price. Ring any bells? 1. Fit or a fiddle. The World Cup in 1998 saw huge excitement build in Paris. The hosts had reached the final where they would meet Brazil and the world's most feared striker, the 21-year-old Ronaldo, who had scored 4 and assisted 3 on the way to the Stade de France. However, on the night before the match, Ronaldo suffered a convulsive fit, frothing at the mouth and shaking, with teammate Cesar Sampaio having to stop him from swallowing his tongue. The forward did start the final, but looked off the pace as Brazil slumped to a 3-0 defeat. The player never had a fit before or after, and as a consequence, conspiracy theories spread through the football world. Some claimed that Ronaldo was drugged, while others said he was forced to play in the final by Nike, who threatened to end his sponsorship deal. One popular idea was that Brazil were bribed by FIFA, losing on purpose in exchange for an easy draw at the 2002 tournament and the promise of hosting the World Cup within 20 years. But the most likely explanation became clear as Ronaldo's career was hobbled by knee problems. R9, struggling during the competition, could have been given a dose of the drug xylocaine, whose side effects can include seizures. But in those days, with Sepp Blatter and his Death Eaters around, who knows what really happened.
So there we have it, but what do you guys at home think? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, why don't you click here for loads more great content and down there to subscribe. And as always guys, we'll catch you later.